Welcome to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the #1 podcast and resource for Black entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful, sustainable businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the worldwide Black community by building and supporting Black-owned businesses. If you're currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, you're invited to join us each and every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family and get ready to elevate your entrepreneur IQ. Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 467. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding and informative show in store for you. Today we're going to be speaking with Mr. Brandon Davenport. He's Shopify's Head of Equitable Commerce and a serial entrepreneur. If you've listened to the podcast for any period of time, you know I'm a big proponent of e-commerce and Shopify. Today we're going to discuss how to raise capital for your business and how to successfully scale your business. We're also going to discuss Brandon's position at Shopify as the head of equitable commerce and how Shopify is committed to helping Black and Indigenous-owned businesses. Now, before we get to today's content, I just want to share a few things with the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and resource links, such as the link to my latest book, Unlocking the Power of ChatGPT, the Ultimate Prompting Handbook for Beginners. You can go to unlockingchatgpt.com. Also, don't forget to check out BEB Academy, which is our online learning portal. Get 3 days free access to all the content inside the academy. You can go to the website blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. It'll be on the first page, or you can go directly to the portal bebacademy.com. Now, let's get ready for today's interview. We are live with my man, Brandon Davenport. He is a serial entrepreneur, former Shark Tank contestant, and the head of equitable commerce at Shopify, and also the founder of BAOBAB. Cool. Brandon, how are you today, brother? Tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and then we're going to break into your entrepreneurial journey and also how you're working with Shopify right now. So tell us a little bit about you personally, where you're from, and your little background.
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I graduate of Morgan State University. Shortly after graduating Morgan, I started my first company called Vesto Mobile. We were sort of like early to that space of like text message marketing, right? So it was a SaaS company focused on doing like advertising marketing via text messaging. We sold that in 2010. I wanted to learn how the big guys, so the big companies sort of like, ran their organization. So shortly after that, I moved to New York and worked at some of the, Fortune 500 companies, American Express, DirecTV, some time at the PwC as well. But again, wanting to learn how larger companies sort of like create their organizations and like what made them sort of special, what was their sort of secret sauce. In 2018, I started BAOBAB Clothing with my business partner, and it was all around really creating a community of like other ambitious folks, right? And what is it that they need to like keep them going, right? And so like our first sort of product around that, is what I'm wearing today, our BAOBAB polo shirt, right? Like taking sort of the thinking out of your apparel, right? Like you just know what you're going to wear, you're going to look fly when you go out, right? You don't have to like think about that, right? Like kind of
Right.
Eliminating sort of decision paralysis. Launched that in 2018, as you mentioned. 2017, as you mentioned, we were on Shark Tank in 2019, which was a interesting ride and journey there. And then I joined Shopify a little over a year and a half ago. To lead an initiative, an effort around advancing, I guess the academic term of like underrepresented entrepreneurs, but really like focusing on minority or like I say, like Black and brown entrepreneurs, recognizing there are real barriers to success that exist, right? And how do we sort of like reduce those barriers in order for those entrepreneurs to be more successful? So that's what I'm doing and focused on today. And currently living and enjoying LA, which is although it's been raining like a lot lately, which is good. For I never want to complain about rain. We need rain, but a little bit of sunshine
There you go.
could be
That's
nice
cool.
as well right
So
now.
I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
Brandon, in terms of making your first jump into entrepreneurship, was there a specific incident or was it
Yeah.
just something that you always had your plan to be an entrepreneur? Tell us how that worked.
Entrepreneurship has always been, I guess, in my
Mhm.
blood or floating around in my mind, right? Like I was that kid growing up. I remember, so my first business, this is like when like desktop publishing was like a thing, right? Where like, with, was it Print Shop or something like that, or like on the old Macs. So I called around to restaurants in my neighborhood to like curry outs
Oh,
and stuff
cool.
to like create like menus for them, right? Like this is seventh grade,
Mhm.
sixth grade Brandon. Like, okay, let me do this. I did a couple of clients. My heart really wasn't in that.
Right.
I'm not a graphic designer at all. But that was like sort of my thing, right? Like trying to figure out like what is it that I can sort of create
Yeah.
value that can help other people, right? And I saw that sort of growing up. So and this is not, we think
Right.
about today, we think about like these unicorn companies, these tech companies, right? Like I'm talking about like everyday folks. So like, my dad, he had like a vending machine company. He did real estate as well. My uncle ran a bunch of like fruit stands throughout like Baltimore, and he owned like a small tavern. My aunt sold like antiques at like flea markets and stuff. And like it was that sort of training early
Hmm.
on, like going around with her on Sundays and bartering and selling and negotiating with folks, right? Like that I didn't know at the time, but it served as a real like learning and test ground for me,
I want the Black
right.
Entrepreneur
Yes,
Blueprint
yes,
family to
yeah.
take notice to what Brandon said real quick. It's entrepreneurship was something that he saw in his family. And so if you're an entrepreneur or you're a prospective entrepreneur, if you have kids, you always say, hey, do what I say. But most people actually do what you do. They watch what you do. And subconsciously, even though, like you said, you didn't know it, you were actually being introduced to entrepreneurship. And it just so happens that as you got older, you became an entrepreneur yourself. I want to talk to you real quick, Brandon, about your
For
first
sure.
business, the tech, your quote unquote tech business. A lot of times entrepreneurs don't get the opportunity to sell a business. Can you tell us quickly about how that came about? And if you don't mind, you don't have to get the exact number. What type of windfall did you make from that?
But yeah, so I mean that came all about actually my business partner. He We were both working in the same industry in Baltimore. We saw that there was this like new technology that was coming. He actually approached me like, "Hey, this new thing
Right,
that's happening."
right,
It
right.
sounds crazy how new thing text messaging, right? this this new thing like where you can message folks on their phone and like get a marketing message out. So we didn't have a tech background, right? And I kind of I always say to folks
Right.
like where there's a will, there's a way, right? Like, and so like we had the will, we had the just trying to figure out like how do we get this done? How do we create the software? This was early
Right.
stages of like there's companies called like Upwork today. I
Okay.
can't
Elance.
remember.
Yeah,
It's
I
called
remember that.
Elance at the time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so like you could, source developers in multiple, like in different countries, right? That can help you in developing your platform. We actually brought in one of my close friends from college who was a developer and coder. So like he helped us in developing the platform. And yeah, we went around,
Mhm.
basically the U.S. and selling, right? So we first leveraged our local market, try to leverage relationships. We ended up like working with some television,
Mhm.
what's it called, television companies, right? So like and some retailers and universities, and doing so. So we finally got to a point
Okay.
because we didn't raise capital, and we were at this sort of like inflection point. Okay, like, do we continue going, right,
Right.
and like basically bootstrapping? And this was, I guess, again, like around late the 2009 or so, around this time, we're thinking, okay, like, do we continue? Do we continue to like
Mhm.
bootstrap? Do we raise money and so forth? And so we were approached, and we had an opportunity to sell to a company that was in a similar space, but a little bit different. They were doing cellular, like security with like the cell phone
Gotcha.
devices, but they wanted to enter into our space. And so we thought about it hard, and like, okay, I think it's time. Like, let's just go ahead, like, and sell. And so we did sell. Well, part of the agreement was that they wanted us to like work at the company for
Transition.
a
Yeah.
year. Like, that was a part of the negotiated so thing. And yeah, transition. And I didn't have it in my heart to like stay. It was like it was no longer my baby, right? It was no longer. So fortunately, I was able to negotiate out of that, but my business
Cool.
partner stayed a bit to help with the transition. And then I that's when I like took some time, and then I went to New York, and I was like, okay, let me now figure, like, I want, because I want to take it, like, if I'm doing this again, I'm taking it to the next. So I want to learn how these companies are doing it right. And so that's when I took the leap around, I guess, late 2010. But yeah, the name of the company we
Okay.
sold it to was Aegis Mobile, which I haven't looked at. I don't even know. I assume they're still around
Gotcha.
in some capacity, but I don't know.
But did you go to corporate first, or did you start your business first?
So I actually, my first job out of college, out of Morgan, was at a
Okay.
CBS owned and operated
Cool.
station in Baltimore, WJZ. That's actually the station that
Big
Oprah got her big break before
syndication, right?
before she
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Um, and so, oh yeah, that was
Okay.
my first job. I was actually in advertising sales there. So the commercials that you saw on
Cool.
television, like that, I was a part of that, right? I was making those transactions happen. But I always, when I talk to entrepreneurs, folks thinking about starting a business, I believe personally that like a sales sort of like start, or like learning how to sell, being a salesperson, like that is a perfect sort of like breeding ground, or place to sort of like learn how to either promote yourself, promote your business, right? Because that's ultimately what it is. You have a product, you have a service, but who cares if
Exactly.
that you have, if no one actually knows about it, right? Sure.
After you sold your company, you went back to corporate America. And I've mentioned this on my show numerous times. Sometimes you take jobs not just for the money, but to learn things. And so it looked like you took the job to build your
Yeah.
foundation. So you went out the next time, you'd have more tools in your tool belt to help you to become successful. So I've told people before, I've taken jobs that I literally was overqualified for, but I wanted to learn something about the industry from people that are being successful in the industry. So I want the light bulb to go off again for the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. That's something that you may need to do or want to do to help further your entrepreneurial dream. I want to jump forward, Brandon, now to, let me get
For
it right
sure.
now, BAOBAB, right? Gotcha. All right. Now, I
Yep. Yep.
saw on
Yep.
Shark Tank, they were asking you, I forgot which shark asked you, why the heck did you name it that? Now, and I want you to explain what the name means and tell me tell me the impetus
Yep.
behind your product and your company.
Yep. For
Okay.
sure. Okay. So right before I jump into that, I want
Mhm.
to address like your previous point about like working at a company, or like learning, or the reasons why one may decide to go corporate and not. So here's the thing. Like, I think that like there's too much pressure that folks put on themselves around this idea of like working for someone, or like I need to like quit my job before I start a company, or it's just it, the mind is so like inundated with so like I guess like so many like messages around like what it means to be an entrepreneur, and you can't work for somebody else, and all the things like, no, I mean, you again, like when I talk about like
Mhm.
what my parents or what my father did, like he had a career where he was with the same company
Right.
for, I don't know, like 40 years, right? But he still did the things, he wasn't, like quitting his job and doing all things. So like, we don't have to make these like drastic decisions, or these like, we need to do what's right for us, right? Whether it's for monetary reasons, whether it's for learning, whatever it is, right? Like if you think about, we talk about Shark Tank. So like any of the sharks on there, like
Right.
they have
Right.
multiple sources of income, right? And we be lying to ourselves that they don't have to be at certain places at certain times. They actually do, right? When they sign an agreement, sign a contract, right? They have to be like filming at a certain time or giving a speech at a certain time or whatever it may be, right? So like this sort of, I don't know, this pressure that oftentimes entrepreneurs put on themselves about like not being able to like,
Right.
have, a job, quote unquote or whatever, right? It's fine. It's okay. Don't relieve yourself of that pressure, like,
That's
and focus on, building the business or building the relationships or whatever it
perfect
is
point.
that's
I
going to
tell
help you
people
get
all
to
the
the next
time,
level.
I said the best time to start a new business is while you got a job, right? So you can finance it. You're not under pressure. You're not going
There
to
you
make
go.
moves that may jeopardize the success of your business because you feel financial pressure. So that's what I always tell people. Don't run out and just say, hey, I quit. Go ahead and make a plan to transition if you're going to fully transition into from employee to entrepreneur.
Now I got
Uh,
your question. I think I remember it. So let me make
okay.
sure if I don't respond to all of it. So like,
Yep.
the reason why we named the company BAOBAB, right? So BAOBAB is the tree of life. It grows in parts of Africa, East and West Africa, and then also parts of Australia as well. The tree of life, it's called that because it
Wow.
lives literally thousands of years, right?
Okay. Yeah,
It's seen a
definitely.
lot, right? It's seen a lot. It's been through a lot, right? And one of the other characteristics of it is that it stores, thousands of gallons
Wow.
of water within its roots, right? And so people, animals, I guess life that sort of
Mhm.
lives around this tree of life, right? They are able to, sustain life through the nutrients that this tree provides, right? And then when the tree, maybe is like dying and going through that process, like depending on the species of it, you'll see like basically like the trunk of the tree hollowed out, and it's
Wow.
so wide, so big that
Oh,
you can
wow.
actually like take shelter and live underneath like or within the trunk of the tree. So
Cool.
that's the baobab tree, right? And the tree of life. And so thinking about that, right? So there was a few sort of elements of the company that we were creating. One of which, again, like for me,
Right.
entrepreneurship is life, right? Being able to, develop and create an idea and to like bring it up to the world, right?
Hmm.
That's like life for me, right? Um, we wanted to build a community of other sort of ambitious folks, right? That had a desire, had a dream, had
Hmm.
something that they wanted to achieve, right? That also saw like their achievement of their thing as sort of like what fuels them and what
Right.
brings them sort of like life, right? Um, and then also thinking about sort of the, we talk about the nourishments that or the folks being able to feed from the tree and so forth. So like again, like being able to either provide knowledge, information, products, or whatever to help fuel folks in their sort of passion or whatever they are looking to achieve, right? Um, and then we have this sort of like environmental like component to like everything that we produce and looking to produce, right? Like recognizing the true like circle. It sounds cliche, but like the circle of life,
Kicking that
right? Of
Lion
like,
King on me, huh?
like
Yeah.
what's created, what's born goes back into, there you go, right? It goes back into the earth and then comes up to, spread out again, right? So all these things, right, like, came into like why we decided, okay, this name, coming across the name, like this really represents what we're building, what we
Hmm.
want to be, what we are, right? And so that's how
Cool.
we landed on the name. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think I answered. It was a second. It was a
I
two
might
part
have
to your
forgot
question.
the
What's the
second
second part
part,
to your
but
question? I'm
I
sorry.
got something for you. But
Okay. Okay.
all right. So in
Okay.
terms
Cool.
of
Cool.
your
Cool.
product selection, what made you jump into
Yeah.
the polo shirt market versus any other market?
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
So I mean, you're from Philly, right? Yep. I'm from Baltimore. Like I East Coast folks for sure. West Coast, like the
Yeah.
polo shirt is a ubiquitous shirt, right? It's a style that transcends. So you can go from like day to night, right? Like dress it up, dress it down. When we think about the person that we were serving, right? This again,
Right.
they have a lot to like focus on, right? and whether it's professionally and social, right? Like and social is a big part of advancing yourself like professionally as well, right? And you don't like, our folks, you don't have to think about all the times, okay, what it is that I'm gonna wear, right? Like I want to naturally like look good and whatever I'm wearing, present well, and go about my day, right? So, um, in my journey, again, like living and working in New York City, I made some
Right.
decisions on how can I be most productive, right? And one of the ways in doing so was like, how do I eliminate choice decisions like in my life? So like I have
Right.
so many things I got to make decisions on, like, right? How can I just eliminate this? So like, so one of the ways I addressed this was like in my wardrobe, right? Like
Right.
because again, like I would go shopping and all the things that I enjoyed, like all the variety in New York, but I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and make sort of the polo shirt my
Right.
sort of go-to like uniform, so to speak, right? And this is before like launching like the company. This was like whatever the
Gotcha.
companies that were available for me to buy. And so what we quickly recognized that it didn't matter if I spent $20 on like an H&M shirt or a shirt from a company like that, or $200 from a luxury brand. The shirt sort of
Right.
all failed in the same way, right? Like, and so I didn't have to go buy more shirts. They would end up, I would donate the shirts that got messed up or like throw them away. It ends up being waste and all the things. So actually my business partner, the whole sort of like original sort of like, let's do it ourselves came up the conversation that him and I had around like, okay, first I asked like, hey, do you even
Right.
just know some companies that like last longer, right? Like, or just like made to last. And he was like, no, not really. They all kind of like, I told him all the things. I was kind of like the collar curling situation. I spill stuff on when I'm at
Right.
like lunch or something and I got to throw it away or whatever. Um, and so, I was like, hey, do you know of any companies? He was like, nah, like, let's do it ourselves. I'm like, okay, let's do it ourselves, right? Let's like figure this thing out. And that was sort of the genesis of how we said, okay, let
To market.
this be sort of our
Now, in
launch
terms
into this
of
market.
separating yourself from your competition. So the question I have, and I have several coaching students that I have that are into the clothing space, and I always talk about problem, solution, result, right? And that's probably the simplest way
Mm-hmm.
to create a business, solve a problem. But sometimes when you have a clothing brand, or say you create puzzle, you're a puzzle company or whatever, it's not necessarily a problem. How did you identify a problem? And if so, what was that? And how do you make inroads into that vast, apparel business? So if you can speak to that for me.
By nature of my training, right? Like, again, working, taking the time, learning from the larger companies, I learned sort of the discipline of product management, right? And so like I consider myself a products guy, right? I think in starting a business, there are sort of like three functions that matter greatly. I guess there are many functions for sure, but again, the product that you're selling, right, and the brand that you're creating. So kind of like what you were talking about, right? So, and then like the financial piece of it and making sure that you
We're
can
going to get to that too.
manage that as well. And so, yeah. So I'm a products guy through and through, and so whenever I'm thinking about like any, selling anything, and again, like I'm not unique, and like everyone has an idea
Right, right.
like often, right? They come like, this, what if this was better? Or what if I could, this happens all the time, right? It's just the thing that separates like
Yeah.
those who do or those who don't is literally
Right.
that those who do and those who don't, right? And so, yeah, so that was already in my head of like, okay, I again was having these issues with like literally this is like a literal sort of thing. Like I wanted to be more productive, but like I was really like kind of wasting money buying, and I ended up buying some really expensive brands, and it wasn't about sort of the
Right.
how can I spend more and more money, like, and then doing my research, I was learning that like a lot of these same brands, regardless of price point, were being made in
Yeah.
the same
Yep.
facilities, right? And so it was the branding, of course, that
Mm-hmm.
separated the
Exactly.
the companies in terms of price points. And there are definitely other elements, and usually like very specific like detailing that
Right.
creates a difference in price point for sure as well. So I don't want to just like kind of paint the picture as just like, oh, it's the
Right.
same exact
Exactly.
product. Sometimes it is.
Exactly.
So literally,
Yep.
sometimes it literally is.
Hmm.
But that's not always the case. So yeah, it was identifying that issue, and then actually like what we started out with is this is at a time when LinkedIn actually used to allow you to download like
Right.
all of the contacts in your like that you follow, like you could download like their email addresses at the time. This was I guess 2017. So anyway, so we literally surveyed our 500 of our closest friends and family, like
Right.
500 like folks that were in our network, and really was asking them about like how do they like sort of look at their wardrobe as a means of being efficient? What are sort of challenges and problems that they have? We went specific into the polo shirts and like challenges that they've had in the past, what are the price points that they generally shop at, and all the things, right? Because we knew ideally
Right.
like who our customer would be, but we wanted to sort of affirm all of these things and making sure that we were on the right path, right? And so this is again like sort of using that sort of product development, product management sort of background and sort of understanding that. So we
Hmm.
did that. We did the market research, and we landed on then okay, this is like what we're going to be approving for. We sort of validated what we're looking to do, right? And so that's what birthed sort of the final like product. The first product that we launched
Cool.
which
Now,
was
in
the
terms
polo shirt.
of your, how do you separate yourself from the masses? Give me some of the benefits uh, of wearing one of your products. So, what is your selling? What are your selling points to your customers?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like the thing that we're
Hmm.
moving away from, right? Which I think was a benefit when we launched, right? So you saw a lot in like I guess from like 2012 to almost like now, so maybe like the pandemic, right? Like you saw a lot of like
Right.
one product but better sort of like companies, right? So
Oh
you saw
man.
like mattresses, right? And like, hey, so they focused on like, doing the mattress
Right.
or like a specific like sneaker, right? So like, might be like there's something unique about this sneaker or whatever, right? And so that was also sort of like the approach that we took to market first, right? Like we know that eventually we will like sell different products, different things that ultimately you know provides a
Hmm.
benefit to our customers, right? Like we wanted to focus on like in that one product, but like how do
Gotcha.
we make it like the best, like from a features perspective, but long term, like folks don't
Right.
buy
Right.
features, right? Like folks buy like what they are like what they sort of like what they align with, like what they what aligns with like their thoughts, their beliefs, and like is this a brand that sort of like stands for like
Right.
who I am and what I believe in and so forth. So you think about like you know I think about like my grandparents and like buying like
Right.
like a Bonneville
Right.
or something, right? It was like it's like that was like their thing, like, and they
Hmm.
bought several throughout the years, right? That was the thing that like aligned with them. You have companies, you have products that are like in our same space, the
Right.
ones like the horse or the alligator, right? Like in their mind, like that is what represented sort of a
Hmm.
sophisticated,
Right.
sort of like presentation, right? And they spend a lot, and they
Right.
spent a lot sort of developing that, right? So brand is just as important, or
Right.
even more important in the long term than the
Exactly.
actual like product itself. Now, the way that we look at it, though, it's like anything again that we develop, we have a
Right.
framework we call
Hmm.
like undeniably better, right? So this undeniably better framework is all about developing products that are superior in design, function, uh, design,
Gotcha.
function, and value, right? And so if they
Hmm.
fit within that, right, then that's what we sort of consider like undeniably better. So um, and the way that we positioned it was all about positioning something that ideally again like made to last or stand up, like be able to go with you right throughout your day, right? You have a
Hmm.
lot of things you're focusing on, like this shirt
Right.
it will
Right.
take you anywhere you want to go, right? Like, and have you looking great all day. So one of the big issues that at least I had, and I
Right.
imagine most people have, is like
Yeah.
it's called bacon collar, right? So that whole thing where like you wash the shirt a
Yeah.
couple of times and like you
Right.
get that like wavy collar, and it's
Exactly.
like, what is this? What's going on, right? There's a look
Right.
back in the day where people like pop their collar up and have that, but that's kind of whack.
Exactly.
Like nobody actually wants to do that. So we designed a stay flat collar, right? So that like it keeps the collar. So
Cool.
it was a collar stay built in, as well as like there's it's like a snap enclosure and all things. But it was like, how do we engineer these things that we know, again, like I don't like, it was literally, again, I don't like this on
Better.
other
Yeah.
products, so like how can I make it like better? Again, like the materials that we use, like all high end. We also created something, just again, it's like these innovations that just make sense for our user, right? So there's like, we call like our hidden
Right. Right.
microfiber cloth, right? Like it's not a sexy name, but if somebody can help me with a sexy name for it, let me know. But yeah, so we call this hidden microfiber cloth. It's on the right hand side of the shirt. It's underneath. So instead of like wiping
Shirt.
like your glasses like on
Right.
the front of your shirt or whatever, or I like, for me, if I'm drinking like a
Right.
seltzer or something, like I like to clean off the top, right,
Exactly.
of the,
You
because I don't
got
know
it.
whose fingerprints on top or whatever. So anyway, so I use that
Okay.
like piece
Cool.
underneath. I'm gonna like lift it up a little bit. I use that as like, and then let's like wipe off your glasses and all the things. So again, it's like, what are those
Functionality.
innovations, those like
Yeah.
those things
Yeah.
that the function of the shirt that will stay with our
Yeah.
customers and keep them again looking fresh. So again, that was sort of
You have a
that's our
zipper in all your shirts?
differentiator. We connect.
Oh,
So our original, like all of our original
okay.
shirts, like they have zipper. This was all, again,
Cool.
like it's
Nice.
about control.
Uh-huh.
So hear me out on this. So you wear buttons. So we say like zippers are better than buttons because, like, think about it, like if you're 6'4"
Right.
versus like 5'8", right? Like this plaque is gonna fall
Right.
differently on you depending on where you are, right? So this allows you to really control exactly how much
Right.
chest, how much cleavage you want to show.
Right.
Show them a little, show a lot, right? But it gives you control to be able to do
Cool.
that. So again, like thinking, and this is all coming about either with our personal experiences or from the free feedback that we got from like our original sort of
All right.
survey that we did with our customers.
And so I know, especially in our communities, a lot of
Yeah.
times we're underfinanced and not able to raise capital as well as some other ethnicities. So let me ask you, in terms of your, BAOBAB, how did you guys finance that when you started your business?
So we financed originally through like our credit cards and our savings
Cool.
and like money that we already had, right? At the time, and I still have my thoughts on it, like, but definitely at the time, I was not really interested
Out.
in sort of
Gotcha.
the classic sort of VC, right? Like, and again, like there are a lot of companies at the time, like,
Yep.
luggage companies, like launches of like, while it's nice, like for sure, like you have, boatload of cash to go ahead, there's a responsibility that comes with it that, I think that most folks don't like talk
Gotcha.
about. So again, this is for me, like not, for most, like that's where my mind was. Actually, my business partner was thinking sort of the opposite. So there was a disconnect there in terms of like how we wanted to like finance and move the business forward. When we think about sort of the first company we had with Vesta, right? This is where, I going to Morgan and like I kind of learned about like that space, like the traditional VC space just a little. And I remember when we had some like really key milestones and like we were like, talking to like VCs and so forth. But that process, I don't know how to describe it. I mean,
Right.
like the process isn't easy for anyone, so I don't want to like pose that regardless. The process is difficult. There was it appeared, right, to be like what one would say like a sense of like not being taken as serious as like
Right.
at the time like Zuckerberg or whatever, right? And again, we're talking about 2000
Yeah.
like 9, right? Like early, so. And so like, and we had that sort of like happen time, even when we were pitching larger companies, it was like, there always felt as if there was a belief that like, these
Did
can't be
this.
the guys who like own
Right.
this company or run this tech company, right? Like it was very, very odd, very weird at that time. But yeah, so, to circle back to your question though, is, like when we, went out to like originally finance, it was, ourselves and then,
Okay. Cool. So
ourselves to
were you
launch.
ever,
Yeah.
you were never able to bring in any outside capital, or in the future, or you didn't want to?
What
Yeah, BAOBAB. Yeah.
for BAOBAB? Yeah. So we raised uh in a couple different ways. So we did I'm forgetting the name. It's like
Like
peer
Kickstarter
fundraising.
or
So
something like that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a company called like so we
Okay.
launched actually on Kickstarter is what we did, and that was for like
Gotcha.
mostly a like marketing like ploy. So it was like, okay, how do we get like attention to the brand? And like they were going, and there's some money being raised there, but it was more about like getting attention and also allowing us to like, yeah,
Hmm.
like test out our positioning, raise a little bit of money for like development, because again we didn't
Right.
have a an apparel background, and so that allowed us to like have a little bit of like cash there to like again go into
Gotcha.
development,
Now,
testing,
in
and all the
terms
things.
of
Yeah.
with your fundraise, how long after you did your fundraise did you supply your actual product to the people that participated? I'm just curious in the time frame.
For Kickstarter, it took us about a year. I want
Okay.
to say like, let's say 13 or 14 months from the time we launched
Campaign. Yeah.
the campaign to the time that we like delivered the first product. And for that, like
Right.
it's all about communication, right? Like people understand and know. So as long as you're communicating with people, hey, here are updates,
Right.
here's what's going on, that sort of thing. Like, they're understanding like what they're
They were cool.
participating in, and so
That's
that was
good.
like no issue like at all.
Speaking of,
Yeah,
you said you went on or you did your fundraising, your Kickstarter for marketing. I wanted to talk to you about your Shark Tank experience. And I wanted to ask you, what was your actual
yeah.
objective? Was your objective to get a deal, or was your objective to get more visibility? Because I see a lot of times the companies that still don't get deals, the visibility into and of itself is such a benefit. A lot of these companies take off. So tell me what your mindset was. And after we talk about this, we're going to jump into Shopify. But tell me what your mindset and objective was when you
Yeah.
went on Shark Tank. What was it, really to get money or what?
Yes. Anyone who goes on Shark Tank, you sign an agreement to, and you when you're talking to producers,
Right.
you should be on there to get a deal. I will say, however, though, that I mean, it goes with kind of what I was saying, that like I would recommend anyone that
Right.
has a consumer facing brand that has some uniqueness to it. Like if you can go on Shark Tank, and the
Right.
sharks, I think, acknowledge this too, right? Like the value that this platform provides to entrepreneurs that are
Hmm.
launching a like consumer brand, like it's huge, and it's something that
Yeah.
especially at that early stage, like you would not be able to pay for, right? Like I think our episode when it first ran, there was maybe like 3.5, like I
Hmm.
saw like the Nielsen ratings, like it was like 3.5, let's say, million folks watched it the first time, like then it reruns over and over again. So like
Right.
the sort of earned media
Yep.
value, if we talk about those terms and marketing terms,
Yeah.
yeah, is it's unmatched. And
How
so yeah,
did that
yeah.
spike your sales?
Oh yeah, I mean that there's nothing. So thinking of Shopify, and we're talking about Shopify. So for everyone who knows who's operating a store on the Shopify platform, if you're every time a
Cha-ching.
sale
Yep.
happens, right, you
Exactly.
hear that
I got a
cha-ching
couple
sound,
stores.
right?
Yeah.
Right. There's right. And so there's nothing better than that cha-ching, and
Wow.
definitely for weeks.
Right.
It becomes a little addictive. So there's probably
Mhm.
that's a problem as well. But like, yeah, like hearing that cha-ching, just like knowing that more so, that, yeah, like,
Mhm.
and this is a bit philosophical, but like there's one end of like, okay, yes, we're making money and all the things, but like there's nothing more satisfying, at least for myself. I can't speak for other folks, of like knowing that like you've created something that like other folks
Mhm.
are believing in, right? And so even beyond like the Shark Tank, which like
Right.
exposed it to a lot more people, right, and a lot more sales, seeing those people come back, time and again to buy like, new colors and new shirts and so forth. There's something about that
That's
relationship for me that's extremely special. And I'm grateful for our customers, our family,
Man,
our BAOBAB
that's
family,
crazy.
which is
What type of percentage growth do you think you received from the initial Shark Tank episode?
oh, it was. I wish like I knew you were asking, because I would like, because I've answered this question a bunch of, but like we we did our entire, like, because we have been in business like a year prior
Mm-hmm.
to PR instructor. So we did our entire, like, basically
Right.
365 days of revenue. We did
Oh,
that
damn.
in a course of
That's
about
crazy.
12 hours. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's phenomenal. And you just have to know too that, like, okay, this is gonna happen. The interesting thing is, though, that they, through this process, and I don't know,
Mhm.
yeah, this isn't a trade secret, but like,
Oh,
you
really?
don't know when your
Wow.
episode will air, right? Yeah, you only know about 6 weeks in advance. So, like,
Exactly.
having enough inventory, right? Like, and some folks, if your supply
Mm-hmm.
chain, if it takes, like, months to get your, you don't know. So, but we like
Gotcha.
oversold inventory and like, but we
Sold
let
out.
folks know. We're like, hey, this is what, sold out. But but like, to be patient, like, we'll give you a refund if you want
Yeah.
it, but like, just we plan to deliver it by X date and so forth. And
Right.
again, people know that, hey, you're you're a small brand, like,
Exactly.
they'll stay with, as long as you communicate.
I want to switch over to
Yeah.
your position at Shopify. You're the head of equitable commerce at Shopify. First question I want to ask you is,
Yep.
was your site on Shopify before you became the head of equitable commerce?
Yeah.
If you said no, I would
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
cut
No,
this
for
out of the
sure.
interview.
So
No, I'm joking.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. No, we knew that we wanted to launch, and this is like, again, years before joining,
Yeah,
which I was working at Shopify. We knew that we wanted to build our platform on Shopify, or our company on Shopify, because it
definitely.
gave us all of the control. And I knew that kind of going, and just having the background that I developed, again, working in the various places I was in New York. I was like, okay, like, definitely
Exactly.
Shopify all the way. It gives us all the control that we need. And I mean, in the amount of access and control
Oh
that, like,
man,
is now there, that wasn't even there when we started, like,
definitely.
it's phenomenal.
And so I'm like, yeah, I'm a big Shopify
Yeah,
proponent. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do a quick and shameless plug.
yeah.
Go to the website, blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Go to my website, hit on resources, hit that Shopify. That's my affiliate link. It'll buy me a cup of coffee. So make sure you guys do that.
But you touch on a really good point, and this is like a thing, like, in my role and what I'm doing, like, it
Right.
has nothing to do with, like, sales or anything, but like, I try to stress to people that, like, you know, if you don't start on Shopify
Yeah,
now, you
exactly.
will eventually, right? And so, like, save yourself all the trouble, all the heart, and it's almost like, and it's unfortunate and disappointing that, like, those other platforms, the way they, and I get it, right?
Exactly.
They're trying to, like, position themselves and figure out, but they're not for e-com in the same way, the same commitment in which, like, Shopify has been designed and continually to be designed. And so, like, again, you're setting yourself up for a disservice when you
Yeah,
end up, like, starting on those sites. But
exactly.
most folks don't know, because of, there's, like, you hear ad, you're like, okay, it sounds good to me. It sounds like me.
Hmm.
Let me go ahead and sign up. You sign up. You might, try to go through the process of building your company, and then you're like, you're a year and a half in, and you realize,
Exactly.
oh, I can't do X, or, I wish I could. And now you have to, like, transition over, or you don't have, or if you don't transition, you're just, like, going through the pains of not having the benefit of being on a platform
Exactly.
that's been
Yeah, it's
designed for
yeah, the
e-com.
platform
So
hands down for me. I know there's, as you said, Brandon, there are other platforms out there, but for me, it just makes a whole lot of sense. In terms
uh,
of getting the position as the head of equitable commerce, how did that happen? And what is your function and your objective in that position at Shopify?
I was actually doing a podcast for Shopify,
Gotcha.
and as an entrepreneur, right? And so, I was talking about my experiences, and all the things, kind of going, deep into, like, my work experience,
Hmm.
and also my experience as an entrepreneur. And after the call, or the podcast interview, I was
Hmm.
having a conversation with the host, and they informed me about this, like, this new sort of initiative role that the company is looking to launch, and needed someone with,
Gotcha.
like, with my sort of background experience. And so, like, would I be interested in exploring this role, was, like, sort of the question. And the reason why is like, I was thinking like, do I have enough time to be able to do, and like really
Right.
give the focus and all the things, right? Immediately after like I read sort of description and I had a couple meetings with folks, like
Mm-hmm.
it became crystal clear how this was like
Wow.
aligned so well. I mean, like if
Yeah.
we talked about like jobs before and like things like this position, this opportunity, I would call it like aligns so well with like who I
Exactly.
am as a person, right? Like
Right.
and like the my life's work, right? Like there it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get better, right? Like in terms of that, like being able to advance entrepreneurs
Exactly.
like who look like me, right? And being able to like be on the inside and figure out ways of, okay, how can I what are the various ways that like I can influence the advancement of entrepreneurs, right? Like
Cool.
it's a perfect opportunity. And so the mission for Shopify is to make commerce better for everyone, right? And so the team and what I'm working on for Equitable Commerce right now, we're focused on making commerce better for underrepresented entrepreneurs or Black and
Mm-hmm.
Brown entrepreneurs on the platform. And so, like, my team currently consists of we call it Build Black,
Mm-hmm.
which is focused on advancing Black entrepreneurs, and then Build Native, which is focused on advancing Indigenous, Native American entrepreneurs, First Nations people, and e-commerce and beyond, right? So, if I look at like what the opportunity again, like I don't our job under our team isn't to to
Right.
go out and like sign
Right.
people up for Shopify. Like no, right? It's like how can we make you a better entrepreneur, right? Like is the goal. And when as we are fine tuning, optimizing like what we're doing, like our focus it's kind of it's
Mhm.
twofold, right? So one of the major goals, of course, is we're partnering with
Okay.
an organization called Operation Hope. Operation Hope it came to Shopify in 2020 when a lot of companies were making these sort of commitments and investments
Mm-hmm.
in our communities, and we launched a an initiative called 1 Million Black Business Initiative, and what that's all about is again like advancing, so either starting or enabling 1 million Black
That's what's up.
businesses over the course of 10 years, right? And so and like we take that extremely serious, and so like our our portion of that, we're focused on the e-com portion of like what that looks like. So of course, like someone could want to start a barber shop or a nail salon, right? Like
Count.
you don't
Gotcha.
have to, like it doesn't have to be an e-com company, right? But also like that nail salon may, that entrepreneur like, hey, actually I want to develop my own
Exactly.
like nail polish formula and like sell
Mm-hmm.
it around the world, right? Like, and so again, like we are working hand in hand with Operation Hope in providing that e-commerce component, like barbers or whatever, right? So
Cool.
like that's what we're focused on, that's what we're looking to advance. And really, as we again, when I talk about refine like our approach to this, is my goal really is to focus on a significant percentage, I'll just say, like of people already like have raised their
Right.
hand and say, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, right? um
Mm-hmm.
because we know you and I should like to be an entrepreneur, to get to that
Yeah.
point where you're like, hey, I want to do this, right? Like
Most definitely.
we think a little different than most of us.
Yep.
Like I say that we're crazy, right? To believe that we and you mentioned like you lost
Mm-hmm.
it all, you gained it all back, like to be able to stomach that, like most folks, aren't able to like
Exactly.
imagine what a world could look like. So so for those folks who raise their hand, like we want to be able to be there to provide them with the enough sort of enablement tools to
Right.
we can't guarantee success at all, right? But prepare them for success, right? And ideally, like creating success in those folks, or those folks who are being successful as an entrepreneur,
Right.
that inspires others, right? So, I mean, I talk to you like
Mm-hmm.
seeing and we talked about this in the beginning, like seeing my parents or so my father, like doing this, and my aunt and my uncle, like seeing these
Right.
things, like
Right.
that inspired me, right? And so and that's how we sort of create that sort of like cyclical engine of like inspiring folks through the success of the people who have decided, hey, I want to, I have an idea, I have a
Man.
dream.
In terms of
Okay.
your company, Baobab, exit strategy, or are you going to go to the wheels fall off?
So the wheels aren't falling off.
That's a good
So
thing. That's a
we
good
going
thing.
but I know, but I know exactly what you mean, right? So yeah, so like there's a the way that I look at like answering that question, right? So there's a book that I was actually introduced to like working at Shopify. It's called Infinite Game by Simon Sinek, right? And so like thinking about building this like 100-year sort of like company, right? Like and the things that like need to happen in order to like to build that and then the vision that you need to have and the mission and so forth. So anyway, so as I look at like what I'm doing and the communities that we're building and the customers they have, I want them to know I'm here to develop a company that's going to be with them for a very long time.
I wanted to ask you real quick about advice you would give for prospective or new entrepreneurs.
I would honestly say like, it's going to be work, right? It's going to be hard work, right? And so know that going into this, right, that you have to put in the work, do the research, understand your market, understand who you're talking to. Like that whole, I know the idea like doing a business plan feels like antiquated, but I would actually encourage folks to do that work, right? Because it's in that work that you sort of understand. Like, don't do it for like investors. I mean, maybe that is eventually what you would like end up using it for, right? But do that for yourself, right? Like, do that for like to take the time to understand like who your market is, like what you're marketing, how you're positioned in the marketplace. All the things will be extremely valuable for you. Also, recognize that like you're gonna have a bunch of voices in your head of what you should and should not do, right? I can't, I can't necessarily like tell you have to like have better discernment, but like know when like it feels right to you, right? And follow that gut, right? Like it again, like it may sound cliche, but it's a real thing. If it feels right, if it's a part of your vision that you're clear about, go ahead along that path. And then ultimately, like, what I'm here to do through Equitable Commerce is to help people believe that they too can build a business that is the manifestation of their vision, whatever it is, right? And so the real test of that for an individual is either you believe that you can or you believe that you can't, but they're both right. And so it's that belief and that commitment every day of waking up, writing down your goals, knocking them out. Like it's what separates those who do versus those who don't. So just stick to that, right? Like what 1% better every day, right? It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be all the things, right? Like don't let that that knock you off. And if it does, like, or you need to take a break, it's okay. Like it's all okay, right? Don't beat yourself up. If you need or want to like work somewhere to get, some money to come in or to like gain experience, like we talked about earlier, it's all okay. Just keep the vision of what you want to build.
Great advice, man. Last question for you before I let you give all your social media contact information and all that good stuff. If you had the opportunity to have a conversation with one person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
So I would love to have a conversation with my grandfather again. Right. Like, the knowledge to things that we discussed and talked about, like it. Yeah. So, you can reach out to me. So, social, of course, Brandon Vision is, my social contact, Instagram and Twitter. I'm starting to tweet again. And then in terms of anybody that's interested in starting their business, and would love to take advantage of some of the opportunities that we have here at Shopify, please join us so shopify.com /1 in the letters MBB. So that's shopify.com /1 MBB. So that's like 1 million Black businesses.
That was an amazing and insightful interview with Mr. Brandon Davenport, Shopify's head of equitable commerce and the founder of BAOBAB Clothing. Before I get to my comments about today's episode, I just want to share my social media contact information and my resource links. So at the top of the show, I mentioned my new book, Unlocking the Power of ChatGPT, the ultimate prompting guide for beginners. To learn more about the book, go to unlockingchatgpt.com. Also, I mentioned at the top of the show, BEBacademy.com, which is our online learning portal. Get 3 days free access. Go to the website, blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, and it's on the first page of the website. In addition to that, if you're looking how to pinpoint and monetize your genius, That course, which is one of my top courses out there, is also on the front of my website. And as we talked about e-commerce today with Brandon, don't forget, if you're serious about building an e-commerce brand, a physical products brand, or a digital products brand, my online program, Brand Builder Academy Elite, is available. It's on the front page of the website, blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Check it out, and you can see and learn more about the program by clicking the link. And there's a short video that outlines everything in that program. Now, if you want to connect with me, guys, anything long, hit me on my email, jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, JAYJONES@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, Facebook, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, Twitter, jjones001, JAYJONES001. Instagram, I have 2 IG accounts. The first one is jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL, and the second one is Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Also, don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for J Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, and of course, YouTube. All the shows are on YouTube also, so make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, hit that subscribe button. We have additional content on YouTube that is not on the show, so please make sure you check that out. Once again, everything can be found on the website, blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Now, in closing today, I just want to talk about one thing, and it's about building and supporting Black-owned businesses. You know, there's been a push to support Black-owned everything after the George Floyd incident, where obviously he was murdered. But one of the things that we have to do, guys, is we have to be conscious. We have to make a concerted effort to build and support Black-owned businesses. Every other ethnicity out there is doing it, and we need to do the same. And so every time that we spend money, we should be thinking, how can we support our brothers and sisters who are entrepreneurs? How can we help them feed their family? How can we help them build businesses where they're going to hire more people that look like us? It's all cyclical, guys. We have to stop just spending our money blindly and, like I said, make a concerted effort to spend money with businesses in our community, be it physically or online. Everybody is walking around with a supercomputer in their pocket, which is called a cell phone. And I guarantee everybody listening to this has ordered something online before. So what does it take for you to go onto your phone and start making ordering from Black businesses something that you do all the time? When you go shopping every 2 weeks for groceries or whenever you go, why not go to a Black business online and order some of the things that you normally order? It has to be intentional, and every other ethnicity has been taught that and is doing it. And we need to make it a habit of doing that. Okay. When we do that, we help circulate the dollars in the Black community. Okay. So you're helping out a fellow brother or sister that owns a business. Okay. You're putting money in their pocket for them providing quality goods or services to you. So when you take control and focus where you spend, you can actually change the community. You literally can change the world. And that's something that we need to focus on. So guys, I'm asking you, please be more intentional where you spend your money and try to seek out on a consistent basis Black-owned businesses that you can support. Now, I say this each and every week, guys, but it's true. I couldn't do this without the BEB family. I appreciate you guys so much. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the new updated website, which we want to be the resource for Black entrepreneurs. We have all types of resources on the website to help you elevate your entrepreneur IQ. Remember, it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us. It's about building an economic power base in the worldwide Black community by building and supporting Black-owned businesses. Love you guys. See you same time next week. Peace.